Well, hi there, and welcome, folks, to another informational video on guns and gun-related topics, especially from the law side, the gun laws, and legalities, and all that. So today's topic is going to be, as you can see from the topic of this video, is going to be on constitutional carry or permitless carry. So when we say permitless carry, and by the way, the number of states right now in the states is now 29th. The number of constitutional carry states has reached number 29, especially during the Biden administration. It really just kind of accelerated this number of states and working on the permitless carry laws, constitutional carry laws, and reached the number successfully 29, and hopefully it'll be going even any further than this number. So yeah, I basically wanted to discuss the kind of nuances between the constitutional carry and having a permit. It's almost like why would I need a permit if I have a right, especially in those states, the right to carry, constitutional carry? I don't need a permit. Yes, you don't. So why would anyone be bothering, applying for a permit and, paying the fees, going through, depending on the state, sitting through a class, such as in the state of Minnesota, where I'm from. I have to change my permit every 5 years, renew it, and I have to sit through each time, about 3-4 hours a class, and at the end of the class, there's a live shooting session to be able to requalify. And there's last time I paid was $80 fee. So why would anyone, go? Well, right now in Minnesota, it's not a constitutional state. It's a permit. It requires a permit. I don't have that option. But if I had an option, let's say any other state out of those 29 states that passed constitutional carry laws, would I be applying for a permit? And if I do, why would I do that? Those are the things and issues the questions that I want to touch base. So there are nuances, basically. And in general, although one can carry a gun on his person or her person without a permit, there are some nuances applying. And the best way to explain that is, I think, is given actual examples to be able to kind of depict and describe the situations. For instance, let's say I'm going to think of another state of Missouri, for instance. State of Missouri is a constitutional state, and a person doesn't need a permit to carry a gun on his or her person. But let's say two friends are going into a restaurant, and let's say there is a sign outside on the door or on the window. It says on these premises we're not allowing guns. Businesses have that right to say that, regardless of the state laws about the guns, whether it's constitutional or not. They have a right to say, on our premises we are not allowing guns. They have a right to say that. So normally, seeing that sign, if you have a gun on you, well, that's what it says, right? You should not enter that location. And if you have a gun on you, you'll be better off leaving that gun inside your car, locked, maybe in your glove compartment, maybe in your trunk, and then walk into that restaurant, for instance, or any other public place. Say two buddies are walking. Both have guns on them. One has constitutional carry because constitutional carry does not have a permit. The other one has a permit. And let's say for some reason, restaurant management realized that they have guns. Just imagine that in some situation that it kind of made it obvious that a person has a gun on his hip, and maybe next table a customer saw that gun and kind of got uncomfortable with that and called the manager of the restaurant saying, "Hey, this guy has a gun on him. I'm not feeling comfortable. Somebody sitting the next table while I'm eating here, enjoying my time. I don't want to have anyone with a gun. That's possible. So the manager comes and asks you, and you in this case example is being a person with permit. In this case there is no law broken. This person is not breaking a law yet. And the manager asks this person to leave the premises and can ask, please go ahead and leave the premises, or if you want to continue eating, go ahead and leave your gun in your car and come back. The person does that. There is no problem with that. No laws have been broken. There is no need to call the police. If he or she refuses to leave the premises and stays there and starts talking about kind of back and forth, that's what happens. Let's assume that this is the case. Then this person is committing a trespassing. Then the management can call cops, and cops come to the restaurant and talk with the person, and they can ask them to leave the premises, or they can escort them out. And they can fine him for trespassing. So basically, that's the highest. That's the law broken. The law is trespassing. That is the person is committing the crime. The crime is called trespassing. It's not a big deal. There's a little fine. That's it. On the other hand, the other person who does have also a gun on this person, and that's a constitutional carry state, and then management realize that this person has a gun. Now this individual is actually technically, theoretically committing a crime because he doesn't have a permit. Now they can call the cops. Let's assume that they call the cops. They would not call the cops. They can do the same thing, ask him to leave, and leave your gun in the car and come back. But let's say they call the cops. Now theoretically, the person without the permit, although it's in that state, the state is constitutional carry state, is committing a crime, and it's called weapons violation. It is going to be different than now trespassing. See the difference is trespassing. At the most that would happen if the person kind of get a little bit belligerent and start going back and forth with the manager at the restaurant. The restaurant owner, manager can call the cops. Okay, he's trespassing. He's gonna get fined. But the other guy without the permit will be actually treated as a criminal, and his crime is weapons violation. That's just one example. The other example is, let's say, okay, you're again in a state, a constitutional carry state, and you didn't bother with, applying for permit. Why do I need it? That's the question, right? I can go around, walk around, do my business all day long with my gun on my hip, no problem. But let's say you're going to travel. So you go to the next state. The next state is neighboring state, or maybe any other state, depending on where you're going to. Assume that the other state you're going to requiring a permit to carry, and that state has a what is the term? They have agreement with your state. Reciprocity, that's the term I was trying to think of. Reciprocity agreement with your state, that your permit from your state actually is equally valid in the state that you're visiting. So now your constitutional carry rights are not applicable in the state that you're visiting. If you don't have a permit from your state, then you're actually committing a crime by not having a permit, because it's going to be treated as a serious crime this time, because you're in possession of firearms without the permit. That's the law. It's going to apply to you in the other state. Or let's say your state is constitutional carry state. The state that you're visiting is also a constitutional carry state. So far so good, right? And you're thinking no problem. And then let's say you drive I'm assuming you're driving it. Let's make it less complicated. Otherwise I'm going to say flying, and then there's different things going to get into play. So I'm assuming you're driving to the next state. For instance, here I'm in Minnesota, and I'm driving to Wisconsin. Easy to drive, just a neighboring state. The other state, the one that I'm visiting, although it's a constitutional carrier state, if I want to go to a hotel, or more like if I want to go to a restaurant, and I'm visiting, right? I'm going to definitely go some restaurant to eat. And the restaurant is serving alcohol, let's say Applebee's. So I visit Applebee's in the state that I'm visiting. The law in that state says, although it's a constitutional carrier state, for those who are visiting the state, they're not residents of that state, but they're visiting from another state, and they have a constitutional carry rights in their host state, they're not accepting that status in a restaurant serving alcohol. They say those folks are supposed to have permit to carry, to be able to visit my state, our state it says, and go to a restaurant which is serving alcohol. That's why I give example of Applebee's, because they serve beer, for instance, right? So in this case, if the person is again enjoying his time eating and drinking beer, maybe visiting with somebody, and somehow the gun is shown on his hip, and it might happen. It happened to somebody I know, for instance, he was, in fact, this guy was a trainer. He was an ex-cop, and he was a gun educator, and he said, I listened to that story, actually, what happened, not story, it's a real thing. During one of those sessions that I was renewing my permit, he said, it was a summertime, I was with my wife, we were at the restaurant, eating, enjoying our time, we were sitting outside the patio. So I was wearing shorts and kind of a loose shirt covering my gun, but I had to stand up and reach out to pull the umbrella, because there was a lot of we were in the sunlight, we were not comfortable, so we needed some shade, and I reached out to the umbrella to open it up. By the time I reached out, my gun was showing up, and the next door table got uncomfortable with that and actually called the restaurant manager, and we had to nothing further happened, but it just was enough to bother us, to kind of create a little bit of frustration, to kind of ruin the time that we were trying to have with my wife, he said. And that's isn't that normal? I mean, if you're enjoying your time at a restaurant with your wife, with your family, and this kind of situation is occurring, well, you wouldn't want that happening to you. So this happened. The restaurant manager comes and he says, "Okay, sir, you have a gun on you, and you cannot produce a permit. If you have a permit, you can say, I have a permit to carry, a concealed carry. And right now, I'm not." The worst thing is you're trespassing, and you can walk outside a restaurant, go to a parking lot, go to your car, put your gun in a glove compartment. In fact, that exactly the same thing happened to me. It was not a restaurant setting. It was in a Mystic Lake, a huge casino in Minnesota. And with my wife, we went to a concert, actually. Huge concert place that's inside the Mystic Lake Casino. And I was able to enter the casino with my gun on me, although I saw the signs. We're banning the guns here. We don't allow people carry guns on our premises. Well, I said, who's gonna see it? It's on my hip. I'm not gonna show it to anybody. And then we're going to concert hall. At concert hall, there was a huge, line. Everybody lined up, and everybody was going through a kind of metal detector, one of those metal detectors. Okay, then I realized that, I'm not going to be able to go through that. And I just walk around and I talk to a person who's working there, kind of, managing that area. I said, I have my legally owned weapon on me. I just wanted to let you know, what would you recommend? Because it's otherwise going to be showing up, right? If I walk through the metal detector. And this person said, wait a minute. He called his manager. A manager came and he said, we're going to have to ask you to walk back to your car, which was quite a ways, because it's a huge place. Just walking back and forth took me 20 minutes at least. In fact, we're going to have somebody escorting you, making sure that you're leaving the building, and walking to your car, and putting your gun in your glove compartment, lock it, lock your car, and come back. Somehow, I said, okay, no problem. I did not, get into any kind of argument. And I just went, I don't know what happened. Maybe they were nice enough. Maybe they thought it wasn't necessary. They didn't give me an escort. I just walked back, locked my gun, and came back. And then we were able to get in the concert hall with my wife. So now, this kind of situations I'm talking about. Even though I had a permit, they were not accepting anyone with guns. Just like, the premises thing. In fact, the manager asked me in a manner like, did you not see the signs when you were entering the building? I said, I must have, it must have escaped me. I didn't pay attention or whatever. I didn't notice. He didn't appear to be convinced with my answer, but that's fine. He didn't make it any bigger deal than that. So like I said, I didn't get into any kind of argument, and I just walked back. Because, it's their right. It's the business's right to say we're not accepting anybody. We're not allowing anybody on our premises with a gun on their hip, whether they have permit or not. So that's another example. I mean, it's like, you have an option, obviously, not to have a permit, but it's definitely given because of those nuances of the law. Law is never black and white, right? There are a lot of nuances and situations. And because of those differences in terms of nuances, when it comes to actually applying the law, although you have a right to carry without any kind of permit, it is from the practical perspectives, and for the reasons, and I just gave a few examples from a couple different settings, it makes sense to have permit, still to have permit to carry. Even if your state is allowing 100%, it's called constitutional carry state. It still makes sense to have a permit. And what is the big deal with that? To pay $80 for fee every 5 years to renew, and sitting through the class. In fact, sitting through the class and listening to the guy for a couple hours or 3 hours, who's really knowledgeable and experienced about the whole entire gun issue and the gun laws and all those things. He is an ex-police officer. The last one, for instance, I really enjoyed it this time that I listened to him, because he also had a doctoral degree in criminal justice, seasoned officer, 30 plus years experience, and he was able to give lots of solid, great examples for various different situations. So that kind of a knowledge is definitely good, right? Every 5 years at least, to listen to. Obviously, in between, it is up to that person to be able to catch up with the current gun laws and changes in those laws. And there's no any shortage of those things, right? The restrictions coming up, such as recently we were talking about Colorado gun ban and all those things, or so-called assault weapons, right? It's a funny word, assault weapons. So anyway, it's really strongly recommended for a person who's carrying a gun, either constitutional permit based carrying, open or conceal. It's not, this person is responsible with learning as much as he or she can about the laws that are applicable in his state and nationwide, and also obviously the technical aspects of at least certain level of knowledge and expertise about the guns, usage, the training, the technical aspects and specs, and all those things. So that's all I have. Thank you very much for listening to my video. Talk to you later on another topic.